everybody. Hi. Today we are going to be talking about how to plan your week using time blocks. And if you haven't downloaded my free workbook, it's called Take Charge of Your Time. You may have had an old version, but now that we're rebranding, I'm slowly moving things over to my new website, and I'm like trying to make improvements as I go. So I've made some improvements to my guide, and I wanted to just share some points from it. And this is one of the things. So back when I first started my business, I used to do a boot camp. It was called Take Charge of Your Biz. I've now turned that into a course that you can take on your own schedule, because nobody likes to have to show up to boot camps, right? It's just so many days and all that stuff. So that being said, um, this live that I'm doing right now is kinda going to dip into what I talk about in the first lesson in the Take Charge of Your Biz course that I have out there, right? And so the first thing is managing your time, right? And one of the things I wanted to say too to you guys is that if you think you have a time management problem, it may not be a time management problem. And I often say it's an implementation problem, because time management is more like you sit down to do something, and it takes you a lot longer than you normally, or than you thought it would take, or you don't manage the time well, so you don't leave yourself enough time to do something that you knew that you had to do. And so that could be the issue that's going on. And so I'm going to talk to you about how you can deal with that so that you don't keep making that same mistake over and over and over again. So if you are watching, please put in hashtag live in the comments. And if you're watching right now live, if you are watching the replay, then put in hashtag replay. I really appreciate that. It really helps, so everybody can get a chance to see my live. It doesn't get too far down on the feed. It'll pop it back up, and then help others see it too, so they can get the help that they need to manage their time better. Okay, so let's talk about time blocks. What are time blocks? So time blocks are these blocks of time that you create in your schedule. So if you look at your schedule right now, just look at your Google Calendar for the week. I know it's Wednesday already, but look at your schedule between now and next Wednesday. That might be a good place to start. Or you could just start looking at your week next week. But if you're already scrambling to get things done and it's already Wednesday and you're like, geez, I don't think I'm going to get everything done that I needed to do, this will help you get those things done, or figure out whether they're important enough to get done. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is look at your schedule. And you basically have a typical schedule that you have, right? Most of us are routine based. We kind of have a schedule that we keep all the time, but you have disruptions in your schedule, like maybe doctor's appointments, or an unexpected meeting, or something happens, a kid gets sick, or whatever the case may be, right? That you have disruptions. So when you look at your calendar, I want you to do two things. One, I want you to look at that typical week of what your typical week looks like, and then look at the calendar for the next week and see if you have any disruptors in that normal schedule. That's going to be key, because if you just schedule based on your normal, regular routine, and you schedule things, you're going to end up over scheduling yourself, or over encumbering yourself with too many things to do, right when you're going to have problems getting enough time to do those things. So you want to make sure that that's the first thing you're doing, is you're looking at the time that you have, and then you're blocking out time when you will work. So the first thing that I do is I block out my green time blocks. The green time blocks are the ones where you really need to have uninterrupted time. So you want to block out time when you're going to have that green time, when you won't have interruptions. Maybe the kids are at school, or your husband's at work, or what, your wife's at work, your spouse is at work, whatever, and you have that time to yourself that you can actually get these things done, right? And then you have yellow time blocks where you still may be working on your business, but you may have disruptions, like somebody else's home. Maybe they're going to be talking to you. Maybe you're helping your kids with homework. You're doing those sorts of things where you can still work on your business, but you're going to have some interruptions when they ask questions or need a little help or whatever, right? So when you do those two things and you have those two time blocks blocked out on your schedule, now the next step is to have red time blocks and blackout time. And actually, I really prefer for you to kind of put your blackout time in first, because you'll start to see like how much time you actually have. So anyway, so what I did was I had you look at um, a specific week, right? And then block out all your blackout time. And then block out the red time. So the red time is when you aren't going to work. It's really blackout time, but if you needed to work, you could. And so I like to make that red because then it really gives you kind of a buffer, right? So if you accidentally put too many things in your list, or if you have a deadline you really want to make, then you have that red time where you can kind of cheat and, get some work done during that time. Maybe, everybody goes off to a movie and you don't go and you work, right? Something like that. um, so, um, so those are, the blackout and the red, and then you have the green and the yellow time blocks. So once you have that all blocked out, now you can start looking at the things that you need to do, right? Because I think that the mistake that we make is we put a list of all the things that we need to do, and then we try to figure out when we're going to have time to do those things, and that's what gets you in trouble, where it's Wednesday and you're looking at your list and you still have an enormous list to do, and you're like, geez, I don't think I'm going to get those things done by Friday, right? So that's the idea, right? So now you've got your time blocks, and you're going to label those, and then you're going to make a list of all the things that you want to do, and you want to label those things. Like, I like to label them like, what's my daily, day-to-day type stuff that I do, and then what is my project work. And the reason why I like to label that is because later down the road, you probably won't need to label your day-to-day work, right? Once you get in these habits and you create routine, you won't have to be even tracking that daily work that you do, because it'll just be your automatic routine that you do, right? The project time is what you're going to have to be slating out to make sure that you're working on projects, right? Think about this. When you're doing your day-to-day work, you're keeping your business at the status quo, right? When you do projects, that's when you're building your business, right? You're changing things, you're modifying things, you're improving on things, you're using data and making decisions and then building something based on that data. You're responding to your market, that sort of thing, right? So so there's that. Then the other thing I want you to do is label each one of those tasks a green time task or a yellow time task. What is the quality of time required for you to do that thing? Do you need green time to do it? Because a lot of times we'll do things that really didn't require green time during green time, and then we don't have that full focus, non-distraction time left over to do the things that actually needed full focus. So label those things, and remember, once you get into the habit of these things, you're probably not going to have to do this forever, but until you do, this is a really good practice for you to just label everything. Is it a green task or a yellow task? And then once you have those down, then I want you to start trying to do estimates. Now, when you do estimates on your work, you will you'll start to see like, whoa, maybe you have way too much task, right? You have way too many tasks for the amount of time that you have. Like, maybe you thought you had enough time, but now that you're getting in and actually estimating how long things will take, you're seeing the error of your ways, right? You're overloading your week with too many things to do, right? And that gets you in trouble. And the thing is it makes you feel bad about yourself when you don't get everything done, right? That's why you think you have a time management problem, and you get upset with yourself and start beating yourself up and all those stupid things that we do to ourselves, right? To that self-criticism. And so by estimating, you're going to help yourself to not overload your week with too many things to do. Okay, so estimating is really simple. It's the bigger than a bread box, smaller than a bread box attitude, right? So, is it going to take longer than an hour or an hour, longer than an hour, shorter than an hour? If it's going to take shorter, is it going to be 15 minutes? If it is, label every single one of those tasks that's going to take you 15 minutes. Label them 15 minutes. I'm telling you, that is one of like my clients. Every time they do this, they tell me how good that 15-minute thing is because they start seeing all their tasks as like, whoa, that's only a 15 minute. That's only 15. That's only 15, and they get a lot more done because it's easier for them to steal away a 15-minute time slot and just get something done real quick and then move on, right? And so you do that 4 times. That's a whole hour of work extra that you got, right? That you didn't have before. So label those things 15 minutes if they're 15-minute task, 30-minute task, 45-minute task, an hour. And then once you get to an hour, then you can start looking at, is it going to be more than 2 hours, more than 3 hours, more than 4 hours? I highly recommend if it's going to be more than 4 hours that you break it down into smaller like milestones or maybe smaller pieces. There might be a lot of things in there that you kind of lumped into one task when it's really a set of smaller tasks, right? So you can start breaking that thing down and then estimate. If you cannot estimate how long it's going to take, you absolutely need to break it down because if you can't figure it out, you don't know how long it's going to take, then you need to break it down into something that's familiar to you. Now, you're not going to necessarily know how long everything takes, so you can download an app. They have, work apps, one's called Worklog, I think. You can download that app and then you can clock in and clock out when you're doing a task so you can start tracking how long things take. Okay? When you start tracking how long things actually take, you're going to get better at estimating, right? And I'm telling you, one of the things when I worked in IT, that was one of the hardest things to get people to do was to estimate how long things were going to take because you just don't know if you're going to have something come up or some obstacle that you face or something like that, right? And so you want to also give yourself some grace, right? You want to pad that number a little bit. I mean, a 15-minute task, you probably know it's just going to take 15 minutes, but if you say it's 15 minutes, it ends up taking you an hour and a half. Something went wrong, right? Either you hit an obstacle or you really need to work on how you estimate things, right? Or you had distractions and things like that. You let yourself get distracted. So that's kind of what you're trying to do by creating these estimates because now you're like, okay, I got a 15-minute block. I can take 15 minutes to do this. And you're less likely to allow distractions in because you want to stay focused on that task to get it done in that 15-minute slot that you said you were going to get it done, right? That's why the Pomodoro technique works so well because you're focusing your mind on one thing that you are going to do and then you spend that half an hour, whatever it is to get that thing done, and then after you're done you sort of reflect on it like, yeah, cool, it did only take me 15 minutes, it did only take an hour, whatever, right? Okay, so now that you have them estimated, I want you to start prioritizing those tasks. Prioritize by must have, should have, could have, and won't have at this time. This is a critical step, and in fact you may do it a couple times. You may, now that you're breaking things down into smaller and smaller pieces, you may find things that you thought were one big task and it was a must-have, when really it was 4 tasks and one of them is a nice-to-have, right? One of them is a won't have at this time or a could have, right? Well, then you might want to take it out if you just aren't going to have enough time to do those things. Okay, so now that you've got all that, right, you've got your time blocks done, you've got the tasks that you want to do, you've got them labeled, whether you need green time or yellow time, you've got them labeled by, whether it's your day-to-day tasks or project work, and now you're labeling them by how long they're going to take, and then the priority of those items. I know it seems like a lot, but you can get really fast at it, and I'm telling you, if you do it for a month straight, once a week, you do it for a month on just trying to plan your week, you may not have to do any of this anymore, right? You'll just get into the habit. You just got to do it though, right? You got to start. And here's the cool thing is when you get overwhelmed, like let's say you get it down and you're doing a really good job, and then you start falling off track and you start feeling overwhelmed again, you start overloading your week too much, and you're getting frustrated, well, you just go back to basics, go back to doing this exercise, and then you'll see the error of your ways and you can correct it and move on, right? No more just saying, oh, I'm terrible at time management. No, now you have tools. Now you have a way to manage your time in a better way. Okay, so now you have all this, you want to start looking at those time blocks again and seeing if you have enough time to do all these tasks that you assigned yourself, right? In these blocks. And if you don't, don't put them in there. So that's why prioritization really is important, because you can start getting those could haves out of there, right? Because you're going to first fill those time blocks with your must have items, then the could have items, or then the should have items, and then possibly the could have items, or they may become won't have it this time. So it's really up to you on how you're going to do that. But I wouldn't leave everything on your board. It's easier to pull things in from your backlog than it is to have a bunch of things left over that can get annoying, and it can cause you to feel frustrated or work longer hours than you really wanted to, that sort of thing. So you don't want to do that. And so now you're cutting those things, and then that's the biggest thing of all, is just don't overload your weeks, right? That's why it's important to see if you have any disruptions in your normal schedule so you can plan accordingly and you don't end up overloading your week. That's why it's important to prioritize, to estimate, and do all of those things so that you don't overload your week. Because as soon as you do, then you're going to burn yourself out, and that's why you end up back in hobby mode, where you just leave your business for a while and you don't get to it, and then you don't get anywhere, right? You give up, you burn out, you give up. So instead, you want to pace yourself at a sustainable pace for you, right? Not for your neighbor, or not for your friend who's a 6 or 7 figure business owner online. Not for those people. It's for you and what you can do. And so when you're thinking about the time that it's taking, and if you feel frustrated, like, gosh, it takes so long to try to make it sustainable, it's just going to take me forever. Well, let me ask you, where are you going to be in 5 years? Where are you going to be in 10 years? Right? How old will your kids be? How old will you be? Where will you be at in life? Who will you be taking care of, somebody or not? So think about that, because I've had clients who could only work like 5 hours a week build a business, and to this day their business is still up and running and making money and doing all those things, because they learned how to build their business in a sustainable way. And it starts with your time and your commitment to that time. That's why we have the green blocks, the yellow blocks, because you're committing yourself to putting in that time in your business each and every week, right? And you'll be surprised if when you download my guide, you'll see, because I have that little day planner where you put all your blackout time, and then all your red time and your green time and your yellow time, and you'd be surprised how many hours you can fit in. It's pretty amazing, really, how many hours you might spend, just doing nothing, or hanging out watching TV, when you could have been doing something that will make you money, right? And that's the idea. If you wanted to start this business, then you've got to make, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, right? You can't add extra hours to the day. You've got to make the most of your day, right? Okay, so that's all I have for today. I hope that helps. Be sure to grab my new and improved workbook, Take Charge of Your Time. It's on my website right there, and I just put it in the comments. So if you want that, it's a really great tool, and it is completely free for you, and it is the first lesson of my Take Charge of Your Biz course that goes more deeply into managing your week and managing projects, and how you can keep yourself from being overloaded. So I hope that this helps, and I'd love to get your feedback. So please let me know what you think. All right. Okay, guys, I'll see you in the comments. Bye-bye. StreamYard. Anyway, hi everyone.